What's up, folks? Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, and it's UFC Fight Night once again, this time for the Poirier versus Hooker main event. And we're back with another video to give you some UFC DFS picks and lineup advice, both FanDuel and DraftKings. Now we're going to use the MMA Occupy model that you see on screen here from OccupyFantasy.com, fully free, to analyze some picks for tonight, look at fights that you want to target, the fights with the most knockout potential, underdogs that could provide upsets, and also look at some projected ownership to help you create the best lineups that you can. Now, if you want access to all of our videos and you want to be notified as soon as they're released, go ahead and click that subscribe button below. That way you get access to them as soon as they are put up here on YouTube. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about this slate, any comments, any questions about UFC DFS in general, comment below and we'll be sure to get back to you before the slate starts this evening. Now, recording this Saturday morning, was hoping to get this out Friday evening, but with a couple of the late replacements, we had to take some time to update the model carefully, and that took a little longer than expected, so we put this out Saturday morning. Also, a reminder that we are going live on Twitch this afternoon, twitch.tv/OccupyFantasy for a live MMA DFS Q&A. Be sure to check us out. Go follow us there. That link is in the description below. If you can't make it live, you can always watch the replay there too. And remember that our Twitch subscribers also get access to our Discord channel where all of our members are chopping it up about this slate as well as other sports on FanDuel and DraftKings. So, like I said, we're going to talk about a couple different things here in this 10-minute video. And the first thing that we should talk about from a very high level, it's only 10 fights on this slate with a couple cancellations. There have been some replacement fighters. There are multiple fighters making their UFC debuts, which means one, lots of variance, two, uncertainty in the metrics that are used for the Occupy model because of where these fighters are coming from. So some potential chaos tonight. The issue with 10 fights means that there are less lineup combinations, more likely for ties at the top of contest, unless we get some true chaos. So we'll try to navigate that, talk about ownership here as well. And the highest owned fighter on the slate as we transition will likely be Dustin Poirier in this main event. So again, you see this on the screen here, OccupyFantasy.com, the MMA Occupy model. Poirier, a minus 235 favorite in the main event. You see the check mark here. That means 5 rounds. 35-cent move in the money line in his favor over the course of the week. 61% knockout chance, finish percent. Again, Poirier, in a big favorite in the 5-round main event, is going to be likely the most popular. We're thinking above 50%, close to 60%, maybe more on this 10-fight slate. Now, his opponent, Dan Hooker, scroll down a bit, 185 money line underdog, moving against him, as we said, 32% knockout chance. But again, in the top half of the model, roughly, which means we probably want access to this fight with not a ton of underdogs on the card that pop out to us. As you see in the top half of the model, literally 0 underdogs, which is relatively rare. Normally we get a couple up there that look like we can target in our tournament lineups. And remember that the Occupy model is built for tournament lineups. If you're new to this, our OF index, our proprietary metric, how I like to explain it, basically it's a combination of how likely a fighter is to win times the upside and the likelihood that they'll be in the optimal lineup if they do win. So Hooker, if he wins, likely going to be in the optimal lineup in a 5-round fight. And I think because of the lack of truly great underdogs, high upside underdogs here, that you probably want 100% exposure to this fight in your lineups. If you're making multiple tournament lineups tonight, it has to either have Poirier or Hooker in it, not both, but one or the other. So 100% exposure to this fight. Now, the other high-owned fighter on this slate is going to be Sean Woodson. As you see him here, number 2 in the model, a minus 500 favorite at just 8,800 on DraftKings, $18 on FanDuel. Not the highest price fighter on either site, but by far the highest favorite. 20-cent move in his favor already. 68% knockout chance, the highest on the slate. Easily the best value play according to just straight up money line odds and knockout chances. And for that reason, he's going to be, like Poirier, 50, 60, maybe more percent owned. Erosa, his opponent, was a late addition. Not as late as, say, Jason Witt, who was added on like Thursday. But Erosa, due to some visa issues for the initial opponent, is actually slated to fight. He was picked on Monday. So, again, 6 days notice instead of 2 days, still not that great. So we'll see Woodson be incredibly, incredibly popular. So, and no surprise to see Erosa here at the bottom of the model with the lowest OF index and the cheapest fighter on the slate. All right. For me, looking at projected ownership, it's going to be Poirier and Woodson, and then a gap to the next tier, probably 35-40% for these next couple of fighters. But I think before we talk about any of that, we have to talk about who's at the top of our model, Youssef Zalal, who is making his second UFC fight. And the issue here it's a double-edged sword. One is we expect, and our Occupy model expects, tons of takedown attempts from Zalal. As we know, takedown attempts can really rack up the points on FanDuel and DraftKings especially. And Zalal, in his first UFC fight, attempted 12 takedowns, only landed 6. But again, if you look at his previous history before the UFC, lots of takedown attempts as well. Griffin, his opponent, pretty poor takedown defense historically. So this looks like an ideal matchup for Zalal to get tons of takedowns and rack up, 80 plus DraftKings points at least, and probably more. And that's why our model has him as the highest fighter by a wide margin, especially when you factor in his price of just $8K on FanDuel, or $8K on DraftKings, and especially $12 on FanDuel, where he's egregiously underpriced. Now, he is a minus 134 favorite. Has moved 34 cents in his favor. So he's not a lock by any means to win this fight. In fact, he's, roughly 55, less than 60% chance to win. But in the event that he does win, especially given his price, he's going to be in the optimal lineup, according to our model. So again, can't go crazy overweight on him because it's only minus 134. And even his opponent, Griffin, if we scroll down some, has one of the higher knockout percent chances. In fact, the highest knockout percent chance of any underdog on the slate. So looks like a pretty good fight to get exposure to. Maybe not 100%, but if Zalal wins, we think he'll be in the optimal. If Griffin wins by knockout, which he has the highest chance of any underdog, he'll be in the optimal lineup. So another fight that you probably want to get some exposure to. Okay, keeping it moving. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a lack of underdogs in the top half of the model, literally 0. So what we have to do in this sort of situation, we've seen it once or twice before over the last couple of slates, where we have to go to the bottom half of the model and look for fighters with the highest knockout percentage. So we have Jordan Griffin, who we just talked about, Philip Lins, who is a heavyweight and a 32% knockout chance, and then a couple other guys here, Kama Worthy, 26%, and Mickey Gall, 26% against Mike Perry. Now this fight very likely to end before a decision is made. Gall 26%, Perry 67%. So very, very likely this fight ends in a knockout. And if that happens, you probably want one of these fighters in your lineup. So that's another fight that you'll probably want to target. Again, this is a really tough slate in the sense that no underdogs really pop. The inexperience of a lot of these fighters, the lack of statistics and metrics to back up a lot of these fighters, and just general chaos because of the late replacements on some of these. Every single slate we've seemed to have gotten a replacement, and we thought it was pretty much under control until Jason Witt 2 days ago was forced in against Takashi Sato. So lots of potential chaos here. Again, the fact that there are only 10 fights on the slate makes it very likely that we're going to have tons of ties at the top, unless we get a Poirier upset or a Woodson upset. Because at 60%, this is what happened last slate, actually. We had a 60% fighter who lost. And if we get something like that happens, then everything opens up. So again, if you start your tournament lineups with Poirier and Woodson, it's going to be duplicated pretty heavily unless your other 4 fighters are pretty big underdogs. So keep that in mind when you're making your tournament lineups. FanDuel, obviously much easier because all you have to do is not use Woodson or Poirier, who are going to be the 2 most popular fighters, in your MVP spot. Find other fighters with high scoring potential for your MVP spot, and then you can get then it's easy to get unique. So guys that pop out are definitely Perry, Sato, Maurice Green, Brendan Allen. I mean, all these guys in the 60% range of knockout chances, which is just nearly as much as Woodson and Poirier. They just don't have the likelihood to win or the 5-round fight going behind them. But if they do win, it's likely coming by knockout. So these 4 guys in particular, Perry, Sato, Green, Allen, look like great bets for FanDuel MVP tournament options who are going to go under 10% owned in that spot, which automatically means you have a lineup that's capable of taking down first place by yourself. All right, that'll do it for this video. Appreciate you listening. Again, this is the MMA Occupy model on OccupyFantasy.com, fully free until a major North American team sport returns. We are going live on Twitch this afternoon. Follow us over there, twitch.tv/OccupyFantasy, to be notified when we're live. Live Q&A session there. If you miss it, you can always catch the replay. And again, encourage you to subscribe here on YouTube. Any videos that we release, by subscribing, you're automatically notified when they're released. That way you don't miss a single video. And if you have any questions below, go ahead and comment. I would like to know who you think the optimal MVP is going to be on FanDuel tonight. Who's your thought? Who's your best bet to get that knockout tonight? It could be Poirier, it could be Woodson, or maybe it's someone lower owned. Let us know in the comments below. Curious to see who you think. All right, that'll do it. Again, I'm Brian Jester, Occupy Fantasy. Thanks for listening. Good luck. Hope someone takes something down.